Joan, tell us about what was the first challenge in terms of really gathering the team together, and that could be talking about the effort to recruit or decide who might make a good team, and if there's anything you took into consideration in the bringing people together. Go ahead and speak into that.
Okay, so when we first started the Conscious Conversations process, and we were trying to pull together people to be on our team, I think we were looking for people, first of all, who might have had some interviewing experience in the past, people with whom others were comfortable, so that they would, within that short time that we had to interview them, be able to really engage in it and connect, and probably people also who had who knew people in the community as well.
So is there any consideration for, young people or established people, things like that?
Certainly. We tried to, even though our congregation is weighted a little bit on the older side, we tried to, maybe more than a little bit, we tried to get some balance there as well. So we would have diverse ages in our interviewing team.
Okay, and so as you gathered people together to decide if they're going to be on the team, so you created an experience that was an opportunity for people to have a taste of what the Conscious Conversations experience is going to be like?
For the team you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So part of our, we first started off, I think at our first meeting, just really doing some community building and talking about the process. And then we had several meetings before we really got into the nitty gritty of it, where we did experience with each other. We did some practice conversations just to get a feel for the questions and the process itself.
Okay, and so as you got together and worked with the materials, I gave you a manual that was provided by Unity Worldwide Ministries, and we went through that, and we looked at the Conscious Conversations interview sheet that was used in that documentation, but we created or we tweaked our own and made our own document.
Right. I think you and I talked about that some, and then the team also had input into how those questions should be framed, and whether we wanted. I don't remember exactly how we revised it, but I know we made some changes that reflected our community better. Okay.
Karen, did you have a comment that you'd like to make?
No,
Okay, you're just waving, or I was just imagining that. All right, so in the course of pulling the team together and getting them trained, did you talk about the actual interview process itself in terms of things that might come up in an interview? I mean, did you?
Sure. In the training, we had a training that we got almost everybody there for, and at that we really went through the steps of the process, and we talked about the need to not give leading questions and to really just be a good listener and to give feedback. Just nodding and that, normal conversational communication, good communication skills. And then also we talked about how to explain the process to the people who were going to be interviewed, so they'd be put at ease and understand there weren't any right or wrong answers, those kinds of things.
Okay, and so part of the experience in terms of deciding how to conduct the interviews, the team had to come together to plan and decide, because the materials offer a number of different ways in which the collection of data or the interviewing of people could happen, such as in groups or offsite or whatever. So what was your process of bringing people into that conversation and deciding what ultimately to do?
We looked at those options of individual interviews, group interviews. We looked at the logistics of when we might interview people and where we might interview them. We were looking at interviewing around 130 people, and so it was a pretty big job. We had about, I think, 15 on the team. And so we decided that for us, it made more sense for the most part. I think maybe we did individual interviews. and we did them mostly on Sundays in the afternoon or after church, right after church. But then we also had an option for people to, who were being interviewed, to opt for us to come to them or to meet them somewhere at a coffee shop. So we had some flexibility that way too, which worked well with our team, because some people didn't have schedules where they could do it on Saturdays, but they could do it at other times during the week. So it required a lot of flexibility, a lot of coordination to put that all in place.
And how often did you all come together as a full team in preparation for before you actually launched the actual interview process?
I think altogether we had 4 meetings. Some of them were monthly, and a couple of them were even quicker than that, in like 2 weeks, because once we sort of got the process going, we often came up with more questions, more thoughts that we had to answer. And so there were a couple of times after the first, I'd say 2 meetings that were monthly, there were 3 or 4 that came off every couple of weeks as we sort of fine-tuned what we were going to do and how we were going to do it.
Okay, and so you settled on a strategy for interviewing everybody, and then you went ahead and announced that, and you contacted our staff to find out locations within the facility that could be used, and so you mapped out a schedule. So what was the window in terms of how long did it take to interview everybody? What was the time?
Well, it got extended, as I recall. I think we started off thinking we could do it in a month or 2, and we ended up maybe 3 months. It seemed like it was forever, but it really was. Part of that was some people would signed up right at the beginning, then other people would come. People kept signing up throughout to be interviewed. I had thought maybe we'd know at the beginning how many people we had, but that kept evolving. And so we needed to evolve with it.
Okay, so now let's move to the actual interviewing process itself. So Karen, do you want to start off on that one? Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I did quite a few interviews. I really enjoyed them. And I think the most beneficial thing to me was just getting to know some of these people that you say hi to every Sunday, but you don't really talk to. So I found it was a really close, intimate conversation all the time. They just were so willing to open up with individuals and share their stories, and it just was a really rewarding process for everyone.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Karen. All right, Tim.
Well, I think for me, one of the things that was the most brilliant about the process was the fact that it truly was a conversation and not an interview environment. And I think that is what really enfolded so many more people signing up later on. Is it wasn't a formal environment. It was where people really got to share their heart about the church and about what their feelings were as to how things should carry forward in the future.
Awesome.
So I loved also, like Karen, doing the conversations, because I'm there every Sunday. I run around doing things and being busy, but being in the interviews made me sit and listen, and it was a safe environment. I think, Joan, that's why so many people started signing up later on, because they heard word of mouth that it was safe, it was friendly, we really did listen, and that it was a good thing to do for the future of the church.
That's awesome. Great. All right, Amber.
Yes, I agree that it was a way, and because I was pretty new to the church at that time when I started doing it, and that was kind of nice for me because it gave me an opportunity to meet people that I really hadn't met, both in the group, as a team. I was able to meet new people and really connect with them. But then when I was interviewing others, I was kind of blown away by their transformational stories, and I wanted to hear more. And it almost just embedded in me the sense that this is such an amazing place. because I was hearing it from every single person I talked with. And so it just reinforced the greatness of Unity, its teachings, and our spiritual center. And so for me, that was really powerful, and I was so happy to be a part of it.
Awesome, thank you. Judy, you want to comment?
So for me also, very similar to everybody else sharing, that I felt blessed by every conversation that I had with people in our community. I felt like people really shared their heart, and it was so exciting to hear everyone's transformational stories and to really witness just how important our ministry is in their lives. And I was surprised by the level of trust that people just shared. I felt like very intimate parts of their heart, and it was important to them to share. And so I felt really, so it created a special bond with each person that I had my conversation with, and even people who I really hadn't had a lot of connection with before. And I felt like it was just this immediate bond with people. And so that was a real blessing for me.
Awesome, awesome, thank you. All right, Al?
I will go along with much of what's been said. I think there was a great deal of intimacy, and I found myself often saying, oh, tell me more about that, because we got so into the conversations that I didn't have to feign interest. It was like, oh, really? Can you tell me more about that? And I think that that's part of what developed the richness in the data, was not just, okay, question number one, how is this? Okay, that's the answer, thank you. No, it was a flowing of conversations back and forth, and oh, that's interesting. Can you say more about that? Oh, yes. And sometimes they went in very interesting ways, things that we could never have predicted on our questionnaire.
Awesome, awesome. Joan, do you want to comment on your interviewing experience?
Sure. In addition to what other people have been saying, I think that trust element that was there was one of the most surprising things to me, that just within the very first 5 or 6 minutes, it seems like we were talking about things of substance that we perhaps didn't normally talk about at church. You know, we'd say hello to each other. Even the people we knew, we wouldn't necessarily talk. Nobody ever asked me some of these questions before, and I hadn't had these conversations. And I found that a number of people I interviewed were really, they expressed gratitude for being asked. It was important to them that we wanted to hear them and hear what they had to say. And I think that made a big difference in kind of launching us into more of a mission-centric ministry, because we were saying, hey, we're all in this together, and you count. Your opinion and your thoughts and your experiences, the ways you've been transformed, they all are important to us as a community.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so let's now move into, let's say the interviews are all over and you've got stacks of these interview sheets, and now your task is to do something with that. And so let's tell that story next. So what was the first thing that you needed to do in order to kind of set the stage or lay things out that would later result into a coherent report? So what were some of the early things that you did?
I'll kick it off, and I know other people are going to have things to say. So we had, I think it was 6 questions. And so first well, it took us a while to just figure out how to do it. We did a lot of back and forth, just conversing about what our process was going to be. And we finally came up with a process where we would, I believe we separated each of the questions. We kept the original sheets, but then we copied them. We physically cut them up into strips, and different people looked at different questions. So that was our first step. Is that right, Al? Is that what?
Yes, that was in fact the first thing we did. Was we made tons of copies. We shredded them up into individual questions. We got together in groups and talked about those individual questions. And as we started to get, we would cut out answers to the various questions and stack them. We would actually start to put them on yellow Post-it notes, and we would put them on the wall, and we would try to be very open for what the category was. And frequently during the course of the time, a stack of stickies would change from this category to that category, or we would rename a category, because there was just so much rich data, and there was no good way of telling what it was going to say to us until we really read it all and sat there and went, okay, what does this have, what do all these questions have to do with, or all these answers have to do with one another that present a theme?
Yeah, just like I was talking about, when we broke things down into themes, we could see the themes changing for certain questions. And with the breakdowns of the questions, one of the things that was so amazing with it was the fact that we weren't only looking for common themes, and we were finding those common themes that were just raising to the surface and becoming very paramount ideas for people. But we are also discovering these outlying ideas that would come up, that were just amazing ideas that no one would ever even think of, that were just you could call them divine sparks that would come out of nowhere.
Awesome. Joan, a second. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
In response to that, I wanted to say that we decided as a team that we didn't want to just focus on, kind of a majority rules, like, which directions the most people were going. But when there were those creative ideas, or those, what Tim was calling outliers, that we really also flagged those or paid attention to those, because sometimes those are the spark of creativity that can get you going in a direction that you need to go. It also, the questions, we haven't really talked about the questions, but they kind of took we did some data taking, demographic kinds of things, but then beyond that, we had a question that was kind of measuring how familiar people were with our mission. And then we went into, there were kind of two parts of what people really were drawing from, what they found valuable, and then also their sense of suggestions and directions for what would make it more meaningful for them at our church or at our center.
Right, and you compiled lots of comments and people's suggestions, and you were able to organize those also in categories and themes. And so what was your process for writing the report, or coming up with how you're going to pull all this together? I know that not everybody was in the report writing team, but
so for that, I think there were 5 of us, I think, involved in writing the report in one way or another. And that group, I think, developed out of those who had time to do it, who were willing to do it, who had some experience in that area. So it worked into a really nice working group. And so one person was responsible for really creating graphics and demographics in a way that they could be easily understood. And then 2 people were responsible for that first part of the questions that related to what people have found meaningful in their experience. And then 2 were focused on the suggestions and the many different permutations that people saw as possibilities for our congregation.
Awesome.
And we all worked together. Everybody kind of wrote their own piece, and we put it together, and we used, was it Google Docs, Amber?
Yes, we used Google Docs to kind of go back and forth and to edit, which was really helpful, because then everybody could get their eyes on it and make suggestions and make notes and edits, and that way, we could have access to it anytime, and it would be up to date, in real time.
Awesome. All right. So as you think about the entire project and you know, the report's written and you shared aspects of it. We published the report. It's available for everybody. Has there been any feedback that you've heard from the community with respect to the Conscious Conversations process? What have you,
Yes.
what have you heard? Talk to me about it.
I heard feedback, right? This is Sally. I know
Yes.
you can't see me. I heard feedback right away from people who had been interviewed and still people who said, gosh, can I still sign up? And no, they couldn't. It was too late. But the feedback was Unity is doing something about the future and not, you know, top down, but Unity is gathering information to be proactive, to change, to modify, to grow, to evolve, to stay a viable, wonderful institution. I heard that from the get-go from a variety of people.
Awesome. Awesome. So let me just ask, and just in closing our conversation around the process, I want you to each think about, in terms of your experience of the process itself, however you were involved, what was the most challenging thing that was a part of your experience, and what was the most gratifying thing that was also a part of your experience? And so, if we could give some thought to that, and let's do another round, and then I think that we can wrap things up. So go ahead. I'll unmute you, Joan. Go ahead.
So I think perhaps the most surprising and challenging thing for me was how long all of this took. I had a very unrealistic idea at the beginning about, oh, we'll just get this done within 6 months, wrapped up, reported, moved on, you know, and you know, it's taken way longer than that for us. Partly it was with, you know, just the scheduling with summers coming and just a whole lot of different factors. So it was a lesson in patience for me and perseverance. I think for me, the overall big positive was a sense of our community coming alive and coming together around this project that deepened us, that connected us, both within the Evolutionary Council team and then also just with all the people we interviewed, and then the outflow after we have shared it, and now what's going to be coming out of it as well. I just feel like it's kind of an energetic activation for us that's been very wonderful.
Awesome. All right. Karen, how about you?
The most gratifying thing was, of course, the interviews, talking to the people. The interesting thing is that they were so willing to talk that sometimes you were there for an hour. I mean, but it was fascinating. It wasn't anything that I was like, gosh, I got to get out of here. It was just all meat, you know, people's stories, and some of them had multiple stories, and it was a beautiful bonding thing, I think, for the whole church. I think it really worked to bring everyone together.
All right, Tim, go ahead.
Well, when it comes to challenges, I think that one of the biggest challenges was the amount of effort and time. You really have to look at this you can't go, okay, well, this is just going to take X amount of time and then it's going to be over. No, the interview processes, it takes, you have to invest the time with each person and give them as much time as they need to take to have these conversations with you. And there's just there's a treasure trove worth of information by doing that. And really some of the wonderful things that come out of this is the people in the church really understand that their spiritual center, their church is not a top-down trickle organization. It's built on a solid foundation of them, and it grows out of them, and they really feel that internally.
Awesome. Thanks. All right, Judy.
Okay, so I would say, I know Joan mentioned that, the time was maybe a challenge, but I would say that maybe the amount of time was a gift, because it gave us, there was understandings that happened just by the nature of the amount of time that it took. And, the way that we understood themes changed a little bit, even when we started working on the writing part of the report. It's like the way became clearer and clearer as time went by. And so maybe the time was a gift. The other thing, a hard part for me was just really trying to capture with integrity what people were sharing, and trying not to put my filter or what I think that they were saying, but really to honor that. But sometimes that was hard, whether it was the writing part or the sharing our ideas together, just to really try to have integrity in what should be conveyed. So that was a hard part. And I would say a gratifying part, though, was just the appreciation for kind of the totality of what we were able to generate as a team, and to capture, the pulse of what's dynamic in our community was really fantastic. And I think it's something that our board's going to be able to use for quite a while. So.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Judy.
Mm-hmm.
Sally.
Well, I think one of my first challenge, as I look back on it, was walking in and seeing a trillion yellow sticky notes all over the walls, and realizing how much time it was going to take to make true sense of this, not made up sense. Sometimes when you want to finish a project, you kind of categorize things in a convenient manner rather than a representative way. We didn't do that, but I could feel that was a possibility. So it kind of made us be more careful of the process to make sense and not make something up as we're looking at all these sticky notes. On the gratifying side, I really think that the whole process, the talk about it, the actual interviewing, meeting, talking to other people in the church about it, led to a greater emphasis of the importance of mission-centric mission of the church, what our actual mission is. I think before that, people would blindly repeat it on Sunday morning, but I think there's a better awareness, a growing awareness of just what it is. And that's helped by you, Amber, on Sunday saying, now repeat after me, what is our mission? I think that's a fabulous thing. People love it, but they also do it, and that helps cement it. So I think it's done well for making our mission more understandable and present.
Awesome. Thanks, Sally. All right, Amber. She mentioned you, so you get a chance to have a rebuttal.
Perfect. Well, I agree with Judy and Sally as far as the challenging part that I saw, which actually turned out to also be kind of rewarding at the same time, was the amount of information. And because we had open-ended questions, it was all subjective information. I mean, the demographic stuff in the beginning, that was easy. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we can manipulate those numbers and make a graph, and it's really obvious. But when it comes to open-ended subjective information and people's feelings and thoughts and opinions, how do you make that objective? And so getting everyone together in a room, like super smart people, people that have this as their gift, were able to bring that strength to the room and really it helped me a lot, like understand how you do this, because thankfully it wasn't just me doing it, because it would have been terrible. It would have been really hard. And so just getting all those people together and then making it more objective and creating the themes, all of that, that was a challenge, but then it turned out to be very rewarding. And then the other thing I personally really enjoyed, because it's my strength and my gift, was being part of the team that put together the report, synthesizing all the information and making it really, because I knew who we knew who the readers were, you know, obviously the board and our community, what is important to include, and how can we include that in a way that is synthesized and clear, and it's all, you know, I love things to be similar in every section, so that we can see, you know, what was the question, what were the percentage of people that answered, and here are some notes. So just making that really clear and concise, that was fun for me.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, Al, you got the last word.
I will echo a lot of that. I think the idea of this being mission centric is one of the keys, because I could see this going very wrong and just having this list of demands for the ministry. This is what we want you to do. And it turned out, you know, not to go that way at all. And yes, it was an interesting process. The open-ended questions, the open-ended data analysis, that big wall of yellow sticky notes, and the conversations. And to tag team on what Amber said, as we were writing the report, which quotes, which stories out of the hundreds that we had best exemplified each of those categories. And we only included a couple for each one, and we could have literally put 50 or 60 of each one. And we had some pretty good debates about which ones were most full of heart, and yet that really exemplified that category the most. And as far as gratifying, it was the depth of connection. There are people, as Sally said, that I have known for years, but I had conversations that I never would have had over coffee. These were in-depth. Yes, they took 45 minutes, an hour and a half sometimes, but they were the sort of things that you only talk to somebody once at that depth.
I'd just like to say that I am just so personally grateful for having been able to be part of it. It was a one-of-a-kind experience, and it just, like Al was saying, it deepened connections, and it made me feel so grateful for my own spiritual community, and grateful that we're able to have such. I knew it was having an impact on me. I didn't know if it was impacting other people, and now I know.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your participation. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.